When researchers finally reference Korea's oldest royal genealogies, they found something the palace had spent centuries trying to hide. Grandmothers listed as mothers, aunts listed as wives, sisters married to brothers, and nobody in the official record willing to write down why. This wasn't a scandal buried in a single reign. It was a pattern stretching back more than 1,000 years. Once historians pieced it together, they realized this wasn't royal excess or personal weakness. It was policy. So what exactly did they find? And why did a kingdom build its entire survival strategy around marrying its own family? To understand it, you have to start with a word most people outside Korea have never heard: golpum, or bone rank. In the ancient kingdom of Silla, your bloodline wasn't just your identity. It was your ceiling, your house size, your job, even the dishes you were allowed to eat at dinner, all fixed by which bone rank you were born into. At the very top sat the Seungol, the sacred bone. To qualify, both of your parents had to be sacred bone too. Records from Silla reveal a math problem historians couldn't ignore. Only a handful of sacred bone families ever existed, and every generation the pool shrank further. By the 7th century it had nearly emptied out completely. In 632, King Jinpyong died without a qualifying male heir. Genealogists combing the record found no scandal, no conspiracy, just an empty list. The only sacred bone person left alive was his daughter. That's how Queen Seondeok took the throne, not because Silla suddenly trusted a woman with power, but because the bloodline had run out of anyone else. 22 years and 2 more sacred bone queens later, the title vanished from history entirely. Every sacred bone person in Korea was dead. Scholars call this the first documented case of a ruling class inbreeding itself out of existence. You'd expect the next dynasty to learn from that. It didn't. When Wangjeon founded Goryeo in 918, he took a different route to the same wall. 9 wives chosen for alliances, not affection. It worked while he was alive. When he died in 943, dozens of sons from dozens of noble mothers turned the court into a battlefield. The next generation of rulers drew a colder lesson than Silla ever had: outside marriages create outside enemies. So they closed the bloodline on purpose. This is where the genealogical detective work gets strange. Historians going through Goryeo marriage records found brides listed under a maternal surname instead of their real paternal one. Not a clerical mistake, a cover story written into the official archive to disguise how closely the bride and groom were actually related. King Gwangjong married his own half-sister. His successor's grandson, King Gyeongjong, married 2 of his own first cousins, sisters, both granddaughters of the dynasty's founder. Tracing what happened to those 2 women afterward gives historians the clearest evidence yet of what this system actually valued. One sister produced a son and briefly ruled Goryeo as regent, wielding more power than almost any woman in Korean history, before a political rival executed her lover and stripped her of everything within days. The other sister failed to remarry into royal favor, became pregnant by a man who was technically her own uncle, and died giving birth beside a gate. Before she'd turned 30, her son survived. He became King Hyeonjong, and he ruled through an invasion that nearly ended Goryeo, and a war his generals somehow won. Records from his reign carry an irony historians still point to: directly a bloodline obsessed with staying pure survived only because of the one relationship it was built to forbid. For 3 more centuries, Goryeo mostly kept marrying inward. Then 2 forces broke it from outside. Confucian scholars began teaching that close family marriage wasn't sacred, it was shameful. And the Mongol Empire, after conquering Goryeo, simply required its kings to marry Mongol princesses instead. Whatever else Mongol rule cost Korea, it did something the royal family had refused to do on its own. It forced new blood in. By 1392, the incoming Joseon dynasty didn't just abandon royal intermarriage. It overcorrected completely. Under Joseon law, anyone sharing a surname and an ancestral clan origin of Bon, Guan, was legally forbidden to marry, even total strangers with no actual blood connection, even if their last shared ancestor lived 1,000 years earlier. Because a handful of Korean surnames are enormous, this law didn't just close a loophole. It criminalized marriage for millions of people who had never been related at all. Here's the detail that surprises most people once the timeline gets laid out: this wasn't some ancient rule that faded away with the dynasties. Korea's constitutional court didn't strike it down until July 1997. The civil code wasn't fully rewritten until 2005, which means somewhere in Seoul today, there are grandparents who were legally barred from marrying the person they loved, for sharing a last name with a stranger. Put the full timeline side by side, and one continuous story emerges: 1,000 years of royal families experimenting with exactly how much bloodline control a kingdom could survive. First too little, then far too much, discovering only through repeated collapse where the line actually was. If you want the version of history the costume dramas leave out, this channel exists for exactly that. Subscribe, because we've only